Our guest speaker today is Dr. Monica F. Cox, who is a professor and the inaugural chair of the Department of Engineering Education at The Ohio State University. I worked in Urbana, Illinois for 2 years, so we made sure that we always say the. In 2011, she became the first African-American female to earn tenure in the College of Engineering at Purdue University. Her research focuses on the mixed methodologies to explore significant research questions in undergraduate, graduate, and professional engineering education, to explore the issues of intersectionality amongst women, particularly women of color in engineering, and to develop, disseminate, and commercialize reliable and valid assessment tools for the use in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education. Please help me in welcoming Dr. Cox for our luncheon keynote.
Thank you so much. Oops, get my right mic. Thank you. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Thank you to the council and to everyone for coming today. I hope that through this presentation you will get some food for thought, not just some physical nourishment, but you will push yourselves to think differently and to ask questions and to be your authentic selves, or as authentic as you think you can be in your roles at the university. So, staying stress-free in turbulent times is a topic that came up because I started a podcast this year where I would just give a few moments of inspiration. I just started on Anchor, recorded on my phone, and this came about because I was really stressed. Like, I don't know if you know, but this year has been pretty rough globally. And I just wanted to kind of use this as a topic because I'm still a professor, I still have other things to do, and I think that this is something that we all face. And as things continue in the world, as the dynamics continue, when we talk about race, gender, and many factors, we're going to have to come to grips with the fact that many people are stressed. So I wanted to start off by telling you a little bit about just how I present. I asked earlier, is it okay to be real? Real and appropriate, because I do understand that this is a professional environment as well. But I think in terms of keeping it real, that means that I will tell you things from my perspective. You heard that I am an engineering professor. I've worked at some Big Ten institutions. I was the first to do certain things, and that's great. I acknowledge that. I'm very grateful for that. But there are some stories behind that too. And so I want people to kind of see that this is not just someone who played by the rules to get to a certain place. I'm not just someone who code switched to get to this place, but I had to be authentic at the same time, and I had to figure out how I would play this game in academia. So we'll talk about that. I'm going to be really vulnerable. I'm going to talk about my personal life a little bit. I'm going to talk about my professional life. Many people will say, I can do that because I'm a full professor. Yup, probably can. I do feel that there are many people whose voices cannot be heard because they either do not have tenure, and they have not gotten to a place where they feel that they have the power to speak. And so I will speak on behalf of many of the voices who you probably will never hear. Also, I hope that this will be very educational. I love it when people learn. I think that you just do not have to be in a classroom to learn. And so I'd like for you to put on your educational hat and hopefully get something out of this that you would not have gotten before. Humorous, love to laugh. And I was just mentioning this at the table, but I think so often, we look to Netflix. Like, I'll give a plug to Netflix. Hopefully they'll sponsor me for something in the future. But, how many of you have maybe a Netflix subscription? Can I just see show of hands? Okay, all right, Netflix. Okay, great. And, many people will look at comedians. Many people may like people like Wanda Sykes or Dave Chappelle or, all the comedians that are out there who are getting these multi-million-dollar contracts. And I say all the time, man, somebody in academia needs to have have their own comedy routine because academia is funny. It's really humorous. The stuff that we go through, people would not really believe actually happens, but I think it's kind of normal to us. And so this is going to be humorous. And then I'm going to leave you with what I call a so what. So why are we talking about this? What's the point? So I mentioned briefly a little bit about stress. And we have heard of hurricanes and earthquakes, natural disasters, the ongoing discussion about climate change, and is climate change real, and what's happening. Also, there are many people who are now using their voices to protest at national levels, at local levels, at universities. They're protesting because they want their voices to be heard. They think that there are inequities, and it's time for someone to speak up about those. And then you think about wars, and potential wars that might happen. So anytime that you turn on, whether it's CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, whatever your choice of news might be, it's very alarming. And I think that, I cannot imagine being a young person now and just being inundated with that, because you're just wondering, am I going to have a world that exists in 15, 20 years? What will this look like? And what kind of leaders will we have? Am I able to be a leader in this world? Will I have a voice in this world? Will I be seen in this world? And so there's a lot that's there. And so I want to acknowledge that too, because these are things that I think about. When I think about academic stress, there's a lot, because we know what it takes to play this game, because I will call it a game. And a lot of the people who do really well in this environment know the rules of the game. You know how to publish, you know how to present, you know how to write the grants, you know how to teach, you know how to get those great evaluations, you know what service you need to do, because the formula is there, and you just need to follow the formula. A lot of people will say that that's really simplifying academia, but when I earned tenure, I was 35 years old, and I remember being in a room with all of my other colleagues after I played the game, and I asked, is this it? Is this what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? I tried to work so hard, and now, yes, I have a 6-figure salary, and that's wonderful, but is this it? I'm just going to be a puppet on a string. I don't really have a voice. I'm always trying to get to the next level. I'm always trying to perform because someone says if I'm too loud, I can't be a full professor. If I don't do certain things, then I can't really belong. Is this really the life that I'm going to live? I just want to know. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what changed for me. And I think there's a risk. There is a risk that I take. So when I talk about being stress-free, there's a piece to this that I will say is not safe, but it's something that I'm choosing to do so that I can live an authentic life. But we'll get to that in a moment. So I want to give you some examples of just some questions that I had. And I break these down into different roles, different perspectives, because I think it's important. We often talk about intersectionality. And so yes, you obviously see I'm a woman, I am African American. I think I'm still young, so I'm going to put young in there as intersection too. But there's so many other things too. And when I think about being a faculty, there was this thing we talk about imposter syndrome a lot. So coming in, I wanted to know, did my academic advisor or did my education prepare me for everything that I thought that I would need? I didn't know. I got a PhD and I thought I was okay. But when you're coming from, I got my PhD at Vanderbilt University in Leadership and Policy Studies, and I went to a completely different discipline in engineering. Although I have an engineering degree, I just want to know, am I going to be prepared? I was at Purdue University. People talk about that institution as one of the top producers of engineers, and I did not know until I got to that university that I was the first, I would be the first African American woman to possibly earn tenure there. So you think in an institution that was founded in the late 1800s that someone would have done that. But many people enter the environment not even realizing that they're trailblazers and pioneers, and they're having to educate not just their students, but the staff, who maybe don't know that colored is not the term that I want to be called in 2005. You know, so it's taking all of those things on, and it's just the stress that comes with that. But anyway, as an administrator, another way I'm stressed, I just want to know, how do I lead faculty who don't want to be told what to do? It's quiet. But seriously, do faculty want to be told what to do? No, you're adults. You have that PhD. You have those credentials. And PhD means don't tell me what to do. I am autonomous, and I can do what I want to do. And, you know, whenever you, like as a department chair, that is something that you have to navigate. There's a completely different leadership mindset that you have to have when people may not see the value of working together, but you know that you have a finite budget, you have finite resources, and you have to somehow make this work. You have your students who have their issues, and you are under a deadline to get everything that you need to get done. So let's talk about the more personal things. So as a wife, I love this story, so I'll tell it really quickly. So I met my husband in band camp, and I used to journal. And this is important because when I was maybe 17, I said when I grew up I wanted to marry someone just like, my husband's name is Ishbal Cox. And 7 years later, we were in graduate school, and this is when email just came out. And I saw his name on the email listserv. I said, that's the same person that I journaled about when I was 17. And so we were in grad school together. He's a musician, and we dated for 2 months and got engaged. And we have been married almost 20 years now. But my thing is, my marriage is very important to me. And thank you for marriage. Thank you for relationships. I appreciate that. Anyway, I'm bringing it back. But you know, I wanted to know, you know, how would I maintain this marriage in this academic environment? Because my husband got to a point where I was so stressed that he said he got tired of hearing about the people at my job. He felt that he knew more about them than he did about, you know, me and what was going on. And so I really had to work on that. And it's something I still have to work on because that can really make or break a relationship. And then as a daughter. So my mother is a 10-year stroke survivor. She had a stroke 2 days before I started my fall semester of my tenure year. And so as an only child, I had to help take care of my mom. My dad at the time, my dad was 7 years older than my mother, but my father passed away in 2017. And so my mother requires 24-hour assistance in Alabama, but my father set up a business to take care of her. And so I am now in charge of that. My mother did not want to move with me to Ohio, so that is something that I want to do to honor her wishes. And so that's something a lot of people don't know about me, particularly at work, but that, like even today, I think before I came up, the caregiver was asking me something, my mother had to go to the doctor, I had to take the phone call, but you know, that's something that I'm constantly thinking about too. And then as a mother, you know, my question is how do I raise a 14-month-old who's really happy? And, you know, he's going to be a teenager when I'm a senior citizen, but the story about that is that I told you I've been married for 20 years, and I didn't think that I could have kids. And I went to 3 specialists, 2 people who just didn't really listen to me when it came to healthcare issues, or 1 person who didn't. But I ended up getting pregnant naturally when I was a department chair. And that is something that was completely different. It's something that I have to engage with. I mean, my child is amazing. But that's a new dimension of my life because I'm now at a place where I'm older, but then I have a youngster who's in my life and a toddler, and I have an older mom. So, you know, what does that look like? And so my point is there can be stress upon stress upon stress. So many people can hear this story and be like, oh my gosh, how are you taking care of all this stuff? And it's just too much. But no, I'll tell you more about that too. So I thought about all of my situations, and we're going to get real. This is why I asked if I could be real. So hopefully you know who these 3 women are. So Meghan Markle, if you are British, you know, I hope I don't say anything wrong about this, but I'm still going to say that my opinion. And then Serena Williams is in the middle, and of course Gabrielle Union. And the big issue that's happening here, you know, with Meghan Markle, there's this big controversy about potential racism and her now living in Canada with her family. Serena Williams, of course, is always, I think, talked about just in so many different ways, scrutinized. And then Gabrielle Union, who was a judge on America's Got Talent, just had some issues where she reported some discriminatory practices that she experienced. And my thought for all of this, and I wrote, am I going to be okay, is because if these women, with their power, their wealth, and their prestige, and all of this, are going through stuff, I sit back and I'm like, am I going to be okay? Because I don't know. If they're struggling, will I be able to overcome this too? And so this is just the reality. These are the things that I think about. And so I'm not trying to take us down a negative path. I'm just taking us down a real path. Because maybe there are individuals in this room who don't realize that behind the people that you see, there's so much. There's a personal perspective, and there are thoughts that go through our heads that we don't bring to work, that we don't share, that we don't want to be vulnerable with you to discuss, but they're still very real. And we see these images maybe locally, but we see them nationally, and we see them globally, and they make us ask questions about our place, even our places at our institutions, and how we are valued. So I want to present a few stress stats, just to continue the positivity. I got this from the American Institute of Stress, and it was just depressing too. And people are just stressed, stressed. And it causes people to miss work. It causes people to question work-life balance. It causes them to to incur healthcare costs and go on medication to somehow help them out. But I just want us to be aware, because what are we doing, or what can we do to somehow decrease these instances? Is it something as simple as a conversation, or asking about someone's day, or acknowledging that there is something that's not right in an atmosphere and it needs to be addressed? So what are these things that we can do? So I'm going to put that out for you. And, I'm just putting some big questions out there too, but, think about it. What are your personal and professional stressors? I think one of the first ways that you can address something is to acknowledge that those things are stressors. And it could be, I'm just going to throw stuff out because I'm not from here, and many of you may or may not want to say anything publicly, but, a stressor might be not having a supportive boss. Look straight ahead. It might be poor teaching evaluations. And maybe you feel that there's bias there, but people don't know what to do about it. Maybe there are unanswered questions, situations that you've experienced, or things that you see, but no one has answers, and the problems just continue. So that's professional. Personally, maybe you do have a really negative partner, somebody who does not support you, somebody who doesn't understand the stress that you go through. Maybe you have relatives who want a lot of money. They think that you're rich, and anytime there's someone who needs to pay for something, it's like, the professor can do it. You're a professional. You can take care of the whole family. You can do all that. And they don't realize the stress that you feel professionally, but it's still there. And so one of the things that I want to point out is that we need to find ways to address those issues too. We need to find places where we can talk about that, because what we go through is unique, but at the same time, it's still very common. It's very similar to what you would watch on Netflix. We cry, and we want support, we want love, we want help, and we want success also. And there's nothing wrong with saying that you want to come to work and you want to be valued. You want to belong. You want to be recognized for your contributions. And, when I think about that too, there's another question. And for those of you who are leaders, if you're stressed, then how do you lead other people who are stressed? When you see something, what do you do? And I often think about that metaphor of, putting your own mask on before you can help someone else. And so how are you putting your own oxygen mask on so that you can then address some of the other issues. So moving on, I just want to talk about this thing we call balance. And so often we say work-life balance, that's what we need. And I've heard many people say this, and I kind of believe it too, but I don't know if work-life balance is really real. Can you really balance everything? Because just things I can tell you, even of this week, examples of what happened. So I told you about my mother earlier, but my mother got sick this weekend. And I was concerned because she was not talking, and I was wondering, did my mother have a stroke? Did she have another stroke? I don't know. And what am I going to do? Because I have to be in Florida, and of course, yes, of course, family is number one. And I thought, what would I do if I can't come? This is, my reputation, it's my professional, activity. I mean, will people really understand if something is going on with my mother? And fortunately, she's okay, but that was Martin Luther King Day. So I was just stressed out all that day, and it physically affected me as well. But in terms of balance, when I got a call on September 21st, 2017, saying that my father had collapsed, and they didn't know that if they could resuscitate him, and I had to get on a plane 3 hours later to never see my father wake up again, I could not plan for that. So there was no balance there. I still grieve. And I don't know what that will look like over time. But I know that I have to continue because that's what life is about. You have to be there for other people, and you kind of keep things moving even when it's not comfortable. And so going back to what I said about the balance, I think what you do is try to prepare yourself, your mindset, your philosophy, look at your values and your beliefs so that when things happen, you know that you can overcome that, or you know the resources that will help you to get to that next place. You know how to communicate to get the help that you need, whether it's a therapist, because I saw my therapist this week, whatever it is that you need, you're tapping into that to help when that stress comes to you. So, continuing with a few stories, I just want to go here and tell you a little bit about some turning points. And really, one was a faculty experience. So I received a presidential award at PK's. I don't know if you've heard of that, but I got to meet President Barack Obama in 2010. And it was for some of the work that I've done. And I was really, really excited about that. But I was in a meeting one day, and it's not related to that at all, but I mentioned something about people of color and how concerned I was about our students of color. And I was the only African American person in the room at the time. And when I said what I needed to say, I was dismissed. I was silenced. Two other people said something. A white male and a white female said something after I did, and people kind of nodded and were like, yeah, that makes sense. Another person acknowledged that I was silenced, and I remembered feeling the tears come up. I said, I'm going to cry. I think I'm going to cry in this meeting. And I didn't want to, but I felt it. So I remembered the exact bag that I had that day. I remembered where everyone was sitting in the room. And after a while, people were talking about like water coolers or something. But I remembered picking up my bag, going up to my office, and by the time I got to my office, I was crying. And my father had been ill, and my assistant saw me. I did not turn on the light, and I just asked her to sit with me. I said, just sit down. And I cried. And I said, I cannot believe that I played this game as well as I could, but I've been disrespected like this. So I was not exempt from experiencing situations that hurt me, even with a presidential award, even with some of the other things that I had done. And that's when I decided I needed to be authentic. I needed to be the one who would say what I needed to say, not in a disrespectful way, because I was not raised to be disrespectful, but I needed to speak up more. And me hiding behind the framework of academia and the papers and following the rules and playing the game would not help me when I had to take the pain home and was upset because I was disrespected as an African American woman. So, that's another thing. Maya Angelou became my friend, and that's why I said you treat people how to teach you. That's what she says. But first you must identify your boundaries, your values, and your beliefs. And I want to leave you with that one. The second thing that I'll hit on really quickly, motherhood. So a senior administrator who became a parent. I will tell you, I was tired after work when I was pregnant. I would go to sleep. And I'm like, what is this? I'm not on emails all day. What's happening? When I was tired, I rested. And that's something that I take with me now. Like, you know what? That email can wait. That telephone call can wait. And people may say, man, you're not working as hard as you used to work. How are you going to get to the next level? How are you going to be a dean? How are you going to be a provost? How are you going to be a president? Believe me, I get calls all the time. So it's not the fact that I don't work after 5 o'clock that keeps me from getting calls. It's the fact that I made a choice to not kill myself for an institution when I need to take a break. But I think, and I don't know if I'm saying the right thing, so I apologize, but then I don't apologize at the same time. You know, I say it politically to apologize, but I just think so often, you know, we get caught up in if I do more, it's going to put me in that position that I need. But what sacrifices are you making because you're going in that direction? And sometimes, and no one told you that you needed to do it at that level. Sometimes you need to just know, I need to spend time with my child because this is the only child I have. And if I don't raise my child, who is? The daycare worker? TV? That's not going to happen on my watch. So I had to make a choice. And then the third thing I'm going to say is that I've read a book by an author called Miles Monroe, and I'm a person of faith, not trying to push any type of religion on people, but there's a paragraph that I really want to read to you because it helped put things in perspective for me. And he has a book called Understanding Your Potential, and this is just one paragraph I'll quickly read. But he says, the wealthiest spot on this planet is not the oil fields of Kuwait, Iraq, or Saudi Arabia. Neither is it the gold and diamond mines of South Africa, the uranium mines of the Soviet Union, or the silver mines of Africa. Though it may surprise you, the richest deposits on our planet lie just a few blocks from your house. They rest in your local cemetery or graveyard. Buried beneath the soil within the walls of those sacred grounds are dreams that never came to pass, songs that were never sung, books that were never written, paintings that never filled a canvas, ideas that were never shared, visions that never became reality, inventions that were never designed, plans that never went beyond the drawing boards of the mind, and purposes that were never fulfilled. Our graveyards are filled with potential that remained potential. So I thought about that, and I realized too that purpose is really important. We only have one life to live, and if we spend our time fighting battles that are not ours to fight and doing work that is not our work to do, then there are people who will never be impacted the way that they need to be impacted. And so for me, it's a reframing. There are a lot of people who struggle, but for every struggle that you have, there are others who need the wisdom that you have. And when we redirect, we start walking in that purpose. We make sure that, as Dr. Monroe says, we die empty. So when we leave, there's nothing left. We have given everything that we're supposed to give. And so that's something that you have to think about too. Are you walking in your purpose, your passion, and your potential? And so I just want to tell you what being stress-free is not, because it sounds so absolute, and I usually hate absolutes. But it does not mean you won't have problems. It doesn't mean that you're going to have all the answers. It doesn't mean you won't fail. It doesn't mean you're not going to have to make tough decisions. It doesn't mean you're not going to be a leader or that people will agree with you all the time. It doesn't mean that you're going to be liked, and it doesn't mean that you won't have to take risks and be courageous. But I think that it's worth it because it means that that you are aligned with your unique purpose and what you are supposed to do. And I think it makes you more comfortable when these situations happen because you know that you are where you are supposed to be, doing what you are supposed to do. And some tips for doing this as I close. It's important to recognize your boundaries. And I find that that's something that a lot of people don't do. And my husband and I mentioned this recently too, where when it came to family situations, you know, anyone could ask for anything and we would just give it to people. But at some point you have to say, you know what, these are my boundaries. I'll give you this, but I can't give you that. This is the time that I'll give to you, but I can't give you that time. And when you start putting those boundaries on every area of your life, you start noticing that you won't have that stress as much because you have defined what your areas are. And I think you have to push yourself to grow every day. A terminal degree does not mean that you stop learning. And so you need to continue to read. You need to have people in your life who challenge you and try to take you to that next level so that you are working at your optimal level. And also, surrounding yourself with good people. That's something that I learned. Everybody is not for you. Even though they say they may be, they're not. Some people are jealous, some people are hateful, and some people are talking about you behind your back. And I'm going to tell you, sometimes you have to work with those people, and that's great. But surround yourself with the people who want success for you as much as they want success for themselves. They will be there for you. And then, once again, if you don't know something, you can Google it. Like, oh my goodness, how many people in here remember when you didn't have the internet? Does anybody? Like, you can Google anything, like encyclopedias, books, Dewey Decimal System, reference books. Like, really, you had to go physically to a place. And so that's something. And then finally, control what you can control and forget about the rest and own who you are, whatever that means. So once again, shameless plug. I did write a couple of books, and the reason I'm pointing to it is because the book on the left is one that I just did because my dad had so many sayings, and I wrote a few of these sayings in a book. It's really short, and it's just a really practical guide. If you have like a teenager or someone, these are just words from my dad to me that I put out there. And then the award that I told you about from President Obama, that research is Demystifying the Engineering PhD. And believe it or not, I finished writing the book when I was on maternity leave because it was easier for me to have a baby on leave than it was to be a department chair. And so I was actually calm and I was able to finish this. And so that's what that book is too. So here's my contact information. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I hope that you've gotten something from it. And I don't know if we have time for questions, but thank you.